afternoon. My name is Maureen Dumas, and I am the Vice President of Advancement and University Relations at Johnson & Wales University. Thank you to all of you for joining us for today's session, JWU Connects, Lessons from Emerging Leaders. We are excited to bring this program to you and look forward to this interesting discussion related to the experiences of our alumni. Before we get started, I'd like to review a few housekeeping items with you. If you have questions for our panelists, please add them to the Q&A section. They will be answered at the conclusion of the program. Also, the chat feature can be used to message other attendees. So if you see fellow alums and you want to reach out to them, please use the chat feature. I'd like to start the program by introducing today's presenter, Marquis Cooper. I've known Marquis since he was a student at the university, and even at that time, he exhibited strong leadership skills. I've worked in higher education for 27 years at several colleges, and it is moments like this to see JWU alumni thriving in their careers and also taking the time to network and give back to the university is very, very fulfilling. We are so proud of what Marquis has been able to accomplish so quickly in his career, as well as our other JWU alumni panelists. Marquis graduated from Johnson & Wales, the College of Business in 2014 with a Bachelor's of Science in Accounting, and he's currently pursuing his master's degree in finance from Bentley College. He is a New Jersey native, now living in Massachusetts, working in internal audit for Chase Corporation, which is based in Westwood, Massachusetts. In addition to serving as chair of JWU Connects Emerging Leaders Network, Marquis also chairs the Neponset River Regional Chamber Young Professionals Group, and he serves on the Career Development Committee for the Massachusetts Society of Certified Public Accountants. Thank you for bringing us this discussion, Marquis. I'll turn it over to you and fellow JWU alumni leaders.
Thank you so much, Maureen, and thank you to everybody for joining us today. We hope this is going to be a really great, robust discussion that everybody can get some good takeaways from. So I'll start by introducing our panelists for this afternoon's discussion. And once I introduce them, I'll give them a chance to kind of talk a little bit about themselves and give a personal introduction, if you will, to each of you. So we'll start with Elyzabeth Estrada from the North Miami campus, class of 2014, College of Business. We have Ben Kantor, class of 2015 from the Providence campus, also College of Business. Natasha Liriano, another 2015 Providence campus, College of Business. Elana Frazier, Charlotte campus, class of 2013 from the College of Hospitality. And Ted Watkins, class of 2015, also Charlotte campus and Hospitality College. So thank you to all of our panelists for joining us. Hopefully, everybody watching knows that this is a great representation of Johnson & Wales, a multi-campus system, diverse, population, and representing so many different career fields. So thank you all for joining us, and thank you for taking part. So I'll give the panelists a chance to introduce themselves and talk a little bit about what they're doing now and their current roles. So we'll start with Ben.
Hey everybody, Marquis, thanks for the intro. It sounds like 2015 was a good year for JWU based on the panelists here. So shout out to my other 15 alums, but happy to be here. As Marquis said, 2015 grad out of Providence campus with a degree in finance and accounting. I've been working with Ernst & Young for the last 5.5 years, and I'm actually in transition into a new role with a new firm, which we can kind of hit on a little bit later, but excited to be here and talk about some of my experiences and hopefully share some good advice and knowledge and anything that you all might be interested in.
Thank you, Ben. Natasha?
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Natasha Liriano, and I work as a recruiter here at Skills for Rhode Island's Future. It's a nonprofit employment agency that works directly with the state to help people find job opportunities in Rhode Island. We work right now with those who've been affected and laid off due to COVID, and we also offer different training opportunities for people looking to make the switch in their career. and many other programs to come. If anyone has any questions in regards to my company, feel free. I'm more than happy to answer those and help you. I'm very excited to be here. So thank you, Marquis, for putting this together. And again, thank you.
All right, Elana.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Elana Frazier from actually the Providence, Rhode Island campus, class of 2009. Currently, I've transitioned out of hospitality and I'm in government, project manager for the South Carolina Institute of Medicine and Public Health. And so what we do is inform legislation and policy on public health issues. And thank you again for having me on this panel.
Thank you. Ted?
Hi, everyone. I'm Ted Watkins, class of 15, Charlotte campus. Thank you to everyone for putting this on. Currently, I serve as a sales manager for ShutterBooth here in Charlotte, and we manage the entire state of North Carolina. We are a kind of a niche in the market of photo booths, and so do a handful of all sorts of events nationally and locally. And actually in the same position right now as transitioning out of the hospitality industry into real estate. Very excited to pursue that passion and take my hospitality skills, and so excited to talk about that and talk about everything and anything alumni related and encourage each other. Thank you for putting this on.
Thanks, Ted. And Elizabeth?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Elyzabeth Estrada. I graduated from the North Miami campus in 2014 as a criminal justice major. I love speaking to alumni and getting to know new ones. So anyone, please ask questions, go crazy. Thank you all to the panelists on this Zoom meeting. I currently work for the University of Miami Health System and Miller School of Medicine. You could say that I'm on the front lines of the COVID-19 public health emergency that we are currently experiencing. I specifically do emergency management, also known as emergency preparedness, where we basically have been managing this public health global emergency. And hopefully I can get to talk to you guys about a little of the things that have happened and just kind of answer your questions. Thank you.
All right, and I think Elizabeth, we're gonna stay with you. You know, in talking now just a little bit about career progression, and give everybody a chance to kind of talk about how they ended up where they are now, and talk a little bit about that progression and some lessons they might have learned along the way. So I wanted to start by asking. I think you wanted to start off in a career in the FBI, right? And then now you're working in FBI management, or excuse me, emergency management. So walk us through how you got to where you are now.
Thanks, Marquis. Great question. Right. I think that most criminal justice students, at least in my year in 2014, all my classmates, we watched SVU, Law and Order, right? We all know we love that show and we wanted to be detectives. I wanted to be an FBI agent. In my senior year in a criminal justice class, I learned about why the Department of Homeland Security was created after 9/11, the tragic incident that occurred, and how there was a department created to plan for these massive scale emergencies that happen. And I thought that was the coolest thing. I thought people would respond chaotically in the past when something of monumental scale happens, but no, there's plans in place, there's response, there's procedures in place that you have to activate. Of course, it makes sense. Back then, I was so naive, I didn't know that, I didn't comprehend that. And it was a new program because 9/11 had never happened before and had never affected, it was a horrible event as we know. So because of that, I got my gears turning and I decided to intern at my county at the time, emergency management office. From there, after 3 months of being a free intern, I was able to get hired and I worked for the county. At that time, around 2014, there was the civil unrest for Trayvon Martin that happened. So I was able to see how, politics plays into decisions and how people, of course, uproar based on what's happening in the climate. So right now, as we can see, that's happening again in our climate. So that was really interesting to see. Thankfully, due to that experience, I can kind of add that to the hospital setting that I am now on how to respond to that. Then I decided, then I went to work for a Native American tribe known as the Seminole Tribe of Florida. They're an emergency, in their emergency management office. and they actually own the Hard Rock International brand, the casino, that's their gaming enterprise. So I was able to also apply my emergency preparedness skills and how we can apply it to the private sector, the gaming facilities, how we can make sure that they're robust, because these facilities are throughout the world, internationally as well, and people may want to target these areas. Specifically here in South Florida, we just built, the Seminole Tribe just built a guitar-shaped hotel. I'm not sure if you guys have seen it on the news, on social media. It's really, really cool. At night, it lights up. You can see it miles away. So unfortunately, things like that, high ticket items of critical infrastructure end up being targets for bad incidents to occur. So that was a lot of preparedness that I was involved in. Now, I never thought I would work for a healthcare agency. Little did I know that I was going to work when there was a public health emergency happening in the entire globe. With that said, I have a mask here. So I actually wear this mask every single day to go to work. I took it off now because I'm in an office and there's no one next to me. So we have very strict very strict guidelines and rules here at the hospital, right? We want to make sure, because people are already immunocompromised, they're already frail and sick. We want to make sure that we do not have patients that arrive here and get sick here. They're already sick. So there's a lot of stuff happening. I'm not sure, Marquis, what exactly you want to elaborate on. I can talk on and on. I really love what I do. So please stop me.
Well, that's the important thing that to come through with everybody, is that not only are you all in, really great professions, but you're also really passionate about the professions that you're in, and they're engaging and really making a difference in a lot of ways. And on that note, we're going to come back to that point, but on the note about, being engaged and making a difference, Elana, in addition to what you're doing now, which I'd like you to speak to a little bit, your own, progression, talk to us a little bit about, in addition to that, what you're doing with the Columbia Urban League, young professionals, and some of the other things that you're doing outside of, your profession.
Sure. So currently I'm president of the Columbia Urban League Young Professionals chapter here in Columbia, South Carolina. I've been in this role for a year. It's a volunteer organization. The National Urban League is the oldest national civil rights and public service organization. And so here I lead the initiatives in Columbia. We have a bunch of advocacy and civic engagement, personal and professional development opportunities. Specifically this year, we were really heavy on the 2020 census and making sure that underserved communities were counted and their families were counted in the census. And then when the census ended, well, it was kind of simultaneous, encouraging individuals to vote, and not just registering individuals to vote, but also educating them on what they're voting for, what each of the positions are actually for, and then saying, hey, if you don't vote, this is how it affects you, letting them, encouraging them to get involved on advocacy level, attend meetings that the police precincts have, civil community meetings, letting them know that it's beyond the protests. And we've seen so many protests happen globally, not just nationally, but globally, but understanding that the process is beyond the protests, right? So you do have to attend your local city council meetings, right? You do have to engage with different local departments in your area and make things happen and make your voice heard. And so we encourage and we educate citizens and individuals on that as well.
Awesome. And so sticking, again, with this idea of remaining engaged, with whether it be your community or different groups that you're a part of. Natasha, I wanted to ask you, in addition to your current role, right, which is working in recruitment. So again, folks, watching that are looking for jobs or career placement. We have folks on the panel that work in that specific field. So this is what we encourage people to reach out on. But Natasha, in addition to doing that, you also do a lot with your sorority and other groups. So if you wouldn't mind expanding a little bit on both what you do professionally and then some of the other stuff that you do outside of the profession.
Definitely. So recruiting wise in that regard is just mainly giving like the professional development piece, connecting people. We're currently working with the Providence Public School Department in Rhode Island. There's an urgent hiring need for substitute teachers and teachers that are willing to go into the school system, help students power through and learn what they need. That's what we've been focusing on specifically. And it also gives them the opportunity to get certified if it's something that they're interested in long term, where typically that's not the process. What I do aside from that is I focus a lot on community service. So I am an hermana of Sigma Lambda Upsilon, Señoritas Latinas Unidas Sorority Incorporated, and we are a national organization. And one of our biggest pieces is always giving back to the community. So some ways that we do this is we've done gift of reading, which is fundraising and providing schools and providing books specifically to schools. So we work with Sophia Academy, which is a nonprofit middle school in the state of Rhode Island. And then we're also working with a class at Alfred Lima Elementary. Other things that we currently have going that we're working on is working on with all girls foster homes, specifically to help provide different like things that they may need. And it's the little things that maybe you don't think of that mainly it's geared towards helping them emotionally. And feeling that they have that support system is specifically what we try to go for. So it could be like a journal, it could be maybe a self-care package, maybe it could be other things we're working on is probably saying how we can help middle school students from Sophia Academy basically pay for their high school applications. So we're trying to figure like those things. We're very passionate in just figuring out what the actual need is, not just, hey, here you go, this is what it is, but making sure it leaves a long-term impact on who we're helping and making sure it's a lifelong connection. So if they did need something down the line, they'll be able to reach out to us. We're also trying to figure out different ways to help the homelessness in Rhode Island. So, you know, they've given out food and things like that. We're thinking about giving out winter gear and different things to help them stay protected in the winter, but also stay safe during COVID. That's just a few things that I do work on. And I also, because I mentor at Sophia Academy, that's also something I'm very passionate about, and just uplifting the youth and finding different things that we can do to just be an ear for them. Honestly, that's all they really need at this point is an ear, someone who understands, someone that's able to be outside of the family and just give them that support system that they probably need or probably don't know they need.
Awesome. And you said a magic word for today, mentoring, which is something that we want to get to in a little bit, but kind of sticking with this career progression theme. So we actually, I think each of you kind of said it a little bit in your intros, but we have a couple of folks on the panels that have since gone to transition either between industries or into some different roles. So in this order, we'll do Ben, talking about going from public now into a different type of accounting and finance setting. We'll talk to Ted about going from working with ShutterBooth to now starting your own real estate venture. And then Elana, we wanted to circle back with you, talking a little bit about your transition between some industries. So kind of in that order, sticking with career progression, Ben, walk us through Ernst & Young to what's next.
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. Spent the last 5.5 years primarily in the audit field, in the audit practice at Ernst & Young. Learned a lot very quickly, high pressure, high intensity, fast moving pace, right? And learned a lot about the basics and how companies operate, and just kind of got to the point where I was looking for that next jump in my career to then move from being more on the opposite side of the table and trying to make sure that our clients were doing and approaching accounting in the right way, both from a routine process as well as from like a unique transaction perspective. And I recently got an opportunity with the Siegfried Group, which is more of a consulting kind of accounting operation, where I'll be moving over there as a manager and basically be working on the other side with our clients to help them execute on. It could be routine accounting transactions or circumstances, or also unique ones, like some of our clients are now dealing with all the impact of COVID, whether it's a big hit in revenues, cost cutting measures, impairments, and all that nature. So looking forward to kind of making that transition from being on the opposite side and being more of a little bit of a compliance exercise to being on the other side, helping our clients then executing on some of these projects to kind of help them as a company grow and progress. So pretty excited for it.
Awesome. How about you, Ted? Walk us through your career progression and what's on the horizon with your new venture.
Yeah, absolutely. So the last 4.5 years, I've been working in sales with ShutterBooth, and definitely I was very young when I was thrown into that opportunity, but took that time to learn and build a foundation of taking the skills that I learned at Johnson & Wales and from the mentors at Johnson & Wales. And so in that role, I've had my hand in marketing, in national events, whether it's working with other offices or national agencies, working with large scale events that come into the city, such as the All-Stars. I almost had the opportunity to work with the RNC because I just missed the DNC when I moved to Charlotte. And so we missed out on that, which was a little bit of a bummer, but working with large scale events, working with events from all types of backgrounds, both culturally and markets. When you're looking at weddings and corporate events, it spans so many different markets because as a vendor, you can go anywhere. You're not restricted to a space such as a venue. You can go anywhere and everywhere with your services. And so this allowed me to develop much greater communication skills, networking skills, being involved with NACE, which some of you may be familiar with, National Association for Catering and Events. And so serving on that board was amazing, and continue to serve on that board. And so all of this has allowed me to build a foundation of a network in Charlotte, outside of Charlotte, outside of North Carolina, and subsequently take this into a new passion, or not a new passion, but a new venture. I've always been passionate about real estate, and while sitting at home for 4 or 5 months furloughed, this gave me a lot of opportunity to, as my mentor said, reflect on skills that I have, reflect on other passions that I have, and see where something can cross over. And I'm very excited that I will be able to still be in a sales capacity, but in working with clients, but in a larger transaction, something that's a larger investment. There's much more that they're emotionally and mentally tied to that transaction, which I'm very excited about. And just continuing on that relationship building and networking.
Awesome. Elana?
Sure. So I started as a sports entertainment event management major with a concentration in hospitality, sales, and meeting management. And I loved it. We did, in undergrad, we would go to the New England Patriots Stadium. We would work the football games. Upon graduating, I've worked in convention centers. I ran my own event production company. We've done Macy's events, everything events, you name it. Like he said, Ted mentioned All-Stars, you name it, the type of event, weddings, I did it. And it was that rush of even working for event marketing companies, taking red-eye flights back to New York just to repack a suitcase and travel again, and being able to see the world. It was exhilarating. It was very, very good. And then it was like, what's next? What's next for me? And so for me, I wrote my own job description, and I'm like, well, what does this look like? I had no clue what it looked like. I wanted to continue, pursuing a degree. So I went to get my master's in project management, but I didn't want to do construction. Everyone correlated project management to construction at the time, and it wasn't, at the time it was a synonymous thing, but I knew I didn't want to be in that field. And I'm like, well, how can I apply this to what I want to do? And so for my last 2 jobs, I wrote my own job description, and I'm like, well, this is exactly what I want to do. I was also influenced by, how can I be a decision maker? How can I bring my chair to the table and make decisions and make people listen to me and make people say, hey, yeah, that's important. That's very much needed. How do I solve social issues? How do I create policy? And so previous job, I worked with the Governor's State Workforce Development Board in creating policy around the state, implementing programs around the state for the community, for workforce and economic development around the state of South Carolina. And then it's like, okay, what else? What's next? And so now at the South Carolina Institute of Medicine and Public Health, we convene academia, we convene government agencies, we convene community stakeholders and influence legislation and policy making. So for me, it was always what's next, what's greater, what's the big picture, for the greater good. And so I've always wanted to be in government. I actually wanted to be the White House social secretary. And so that's the big event planner for the White House and all the government entities. And so it didn't happen, but in some capacity, I'm still planning for the government. And I absolutely love making a difference on socioeconomic issues, health issues, creating solutions that resolve barriers and eliminates disparities in underserved communities. And I absolutely love it. And by night, I can plan an event with my eyes closed.
Awesome. So yeah, thank you all. And hopefully, like we say, that gives everybody watching a good perspective on how broad the alumni network really is in terms of how many industries and professions and roles we really serve in. I want to transition the conversation a little bit to this idea of, lifelong learning and lessons. And I have a copy of the Alumni magazine that we get every few months. And it was the 2016 magazine where they do profiles in success and showcase different alumni. And I think that it features one of our favorites that are on the panel today. I don't know if you guys can see it. Elyzabeth Estrada, class of 2014. And one of the things that the profile piece mentions, it's a quote from Elyzabeth that says, "Every day I get excited to come to work. I'm learning something new." And so I wanted to talk about some of the lessons that each of you have learned along the way in your different fields. And if those lessons came from a mentor, a friend, who they came from and what they taught you. And Elyzabeth, I know we started with that profile, but we're going to save you for last on this, because I'm really interested in hearing some unique perspective as a kind of frontline worker for everything going on in 2020. So with that, Ted, you had mentioned that your mentor had made some recommendations to you in terms of, reflecting on some of the skills and things that you bring to the table. So talk to us a little bit about, some of the other lessons that mentor might have given you along the way.
Sure. So this mentor, and I have to say, I try to keep several mentors in my life, whether it's from the alum, but this one particularly was from my fraternity, and met him at a convention one year. And so the idea of always learning and thinking about, well, what are my passions? What are my skill sets? I think the number one thing is to always remind yourself, first and foremost, that don't limit yourself within the degree, the confines of your degree. I went from wanting to be baking and pastry to hotel and lodging management to now I'm going to be in real estate. So my mentor has really helped me in understanding and reflecting on that. It's what you're passionate about, and it's what you want to do in life. Not necessarily, it may not be tied to money. It might not be tied to a title. In being a real estate agent, I know that in learning about myself more over the last year and experiencing so many different perspectives and taking the time to listen to people more and break down those barriers that we have in communication now. Learning about, well, what is that going to allow me to do? And being in that position is going to allow me to grow in other areas where I want to be involved in the community. I want to be involved in, as Elana was saying, socioeconomic dilemmas. And there's so much within real estate that you can have a hand in that. And that's very exciting to know that you can help promote that. And it's not necessarily about the money. So he always reminds me that, and as with personally with my faith, and him and I share that, we remind each other of what is the greater purpose, what is beyond the confines of our job title or the confines of our degree. Because a hotel and lodging major, you know, you would not suspect to be a real estate agent, or particularly, you know, work for a photo booth company. So that is what I've learned and what has helped me, you know, grow over the last couple of years, and especially the last 6 months.
Awesome. And Natasha, you bring a unique perspective to this idea of mentorship, because you mentioned that you serve as a mentor. So can you talk a little bit about, you know, is there advice that you may have received from a mentor that you now give to your mentees, or what types of lessons have you gotten that you can share?
I think during my interview, I mentioned that the biggest quote or anything for me is everything happens for a reason. So that was just something that was told to me when I was in high school, when I was going through the process of applying to colleges, trying to figure out the barriers of how to afford schools, what schools I can attend to, and things like that. So everything for me was just everything happens for a reason. And even in career-wise, right before COVID, I had lost my job due to a company downsizing, and then COVID had a big impact. So for me, it was just being positive, using my resources, networking with other people. And the most important piece, like Ted said, is keeping my options open. So I've worked as a recruiter before, and I've done it in a for-profit industry. And then all the positions that you would think, oh, are not a fit for me, sometimes that job description has more entailed to it that you are more applicable for. You just have to kind of shoot your shot. So that everything happens for a reason, and then not limiting myself. So when I was connecting with, I have, like Ted mentioned, it's important to have different mentors, but also it allows you to have different perspectives from different things. So like one mentor would give you guidance in one way, but then you can ask another one and see what their perspective is. And then at the end of the day, it is up to you to take the information that I shared with you and for you to process it and what means most to you, or like how you want that to look like. But the most important piece for me was like not limiting myself. So when I do find myself in those situations, I do reach out to my mentor. That was the most important piece for me. So a lot of the information that I give my mentee, you know, she's only in middle school, but you'd be so surprised at the kind of things, and she doesn't have things like that, but it's just more or less just being a support system and listening. And then if she's struggling with something, reminding her that you may be struggling with something, but you're not alone, and everything you're going through, somebody else has went through. So even if you're struggling with something in school and speaking out about it, doesn't mean that you're anything less, or you need to feel like it's you being dumbed down or anything like that. But it's also, you probably are speaking up for somebody who's not able to speak up or is nervous to speak up, and you're probably being that voice for somebody else. So for me, it's mainly just giving that advice to anyone. Don't limit yourself. Like, you are your biggest barrier. When you look at something and you're like, I can't do this, like, you're opting yourself out of that opportunity before even the employer. There's been opportunities that I didn't think I would be a fit for, that I've interviewed for. And, you know, once you get in the face of the employer, you realize it is something you have. It's just about taking the skills that you've learned in different companies and different roles that you've done, and then implementing that into the new role. It could be you're familiar with a software that they probably haven't used, but you've used in the past, that transfers over to the new software that it's on there. Or maybe it's even the opportunity to just express that you want to learn, you're eager to learn, and you're driven. So that's what employers are looking for. So once I stopped serving as my own barrier, I allowed myself to push through. And then it's the same information I give to like anyone who has an issue, or like job searching, personal life, or anything going through. You have to network, you have to push yourself, you have to be open. And most importantly, you need to stop doubting yourself, because the doubt is going to be the biggest thing that's ever going to hold you back. And even if you hear no, there's law of averages, the same thing when you're doing anything. The law of averages, the amount of times you hear no, it's going to lead to a yes. You can't be afraid to hear that no. And that no is, again, everything happens for a reason. Later along the line, you'll learn maybe that company wasn't the one for you. Maybe it's not matching your long-term goal, like Elana kept talking about. Like, what else, right? It's not just about getting a job and it paying your bills. It's about, what are you passionate about? What is going to fuel your soul? What can you do for the company? But the other piece too is, what can that company offer me? Like, am I just coming in with my experience and then calling it a day? Or is the experience they're also going to give me going to help push me to my long-term goal? And if you don't know that long-term goal, at least know what you're passionate about and use that to push you to keep going. So I guess yeah, that's the best advice I've gotten, is the everything happens for a reason, and then not to doubt yourself. And if you're ever hesitant, talk to somebody else and make sure that person is going to be the one that's going to push you and motivate you, or reach out to your networks.
Awesome. So, and you bring up a good point about, being able to have multiple mentors, right? Ben, you and I have worked in the accounting space, and we've obviously worked with larger companies, publicly traded companies, and they all typically have, a board of directors, board of trustees, whatever they call you. And I saw an interesting exercise, a leadership exercise that talks about this idea of having your own personal board of directors, people in your circle or in your orbit that share advice, that you vet decisions with, that can either be a peer or someone that's more experienced than you, and those types of things to help you in your progression. Do you have your own, personal kind of board of directors, and who's on it, and what have you learned from them?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think the whole concept of mentor and mentorship has been important to me from an early stage in my life through my athletic career that went through into JWU, all the way into JWU and then since. But yeah, I think having that personal kind of board of directors and having different mentors for different types of things as well is immensely important, right? Like, you want to have people that you feel comfortable to go to for career advice, people that you feel comfortable going to for personal advice, opportunity advice, things of that nature, right? So I feel like I've had the opportunity and the ability throughout my later term of my life, not like from high school on, to kind of develop that from both like an athletic standpoint, academic, and now career standpoint. And definitely have a nice core group of folks, whether it be a mentor at the firm at EY that I met during like one of my first weeks of training, and he kind of built that relationship and was always that guy that I could kind of go to and vent and kind of be like, here's the situation I'm going through. Like, let me get your perspective. And I think being able to, what Natasha and Ted kind of said, is have multiple people where you get their feedback on and kind of collect that data and figure out what works best for you, right? And I think finding these people that have your best interest at heart and have been in similar situations in the past. And I think when I think about it now trying to pay it forward to others, is what I've learned is that all of the folks that I go to and look up to have had folks that they went to and looked up to, and mentors. So it's kind of your obligation at that point then to be able to pay it forward and help others. So I think it's something that you should always be looking for. And I think for the vast majority of folks, they're very open to kind of taking people on as mentors, whether it's formally or informally. People know that they've got no place in their life because other people helped them and gave them that chance and helped talk them through stuff. And it's their responsibility now to do that for others. And so I think you should always be looking for mentors. And even if you find one that you love and is your go-to, like, never be afraid to kind of find more and add more seats to your board.
Awesome. Yes, keep expanding the board as much as you can, and rely on that. To Elana and to Elyzabeth, so the rest of the panel has kind of talked about some lessons that they've gotten, from mentors in their circle. But since you both have had some unique exposure to what's happening on, the front lines, both in emergency response and in policy response for everything going on in 2020, can you talk, briefly about some of the lessons that you have learned kind of on your own, either about yourself or about your profession? What have you learned in this year specifically that has made you a better professional, better person, better, whatever? We'll start with you, Elana.
That's a great question. I've been in project management. This is year 2, so 2021 will begin year 3 for me in project management. And so as a planner, I have a plan A to Z. If that doesn't work out, I have AA through ZZ. Don't debate me. Something's gonna work out. We're gonna find a solution. And then moving into project management, it was more so handling the larger projects on a grander scale, but then mitigation was really, really heavy. And so although you have it in events for managing projects, it's just on a different level. And so 2019 has very much prepared me for 2020 in terms of it's okay to not have a plan. It's okay to wing it, because definitely during this pandemic, I mean, I've had the opportunity to work from home. I turned my dining room into an office. Understanding that a lot of folks don't have that opportunity or luxury. It's definitely been allow whatever it is that's going to happen, allow it to happen and be okay with it, that you have no control over it. Being on the front lines of the pandemic, I would say my ability to be responsive, but not, I would say, afraid, has definitely helped me. In the events field, it's kind of like a duck, right? And so you're smooth over water, but underneath that water, you're paddling heavy. And so you have to always have a game face on in the events field. And so I think that transition has definitely helped me, definitely responding to legislation, because as a nonpartisan, we can't take sides. We have to just provide the facts in terms of being responsive to massive emergencies, and specifically the pandemic, and letting people know that, hey, our information is factual, it's concrete. And even with public messaging and using social media, you get a lot of questions, and it's the learning to not be so reactive and emotionally attached to it. It's like, okay, it's gonna be okay, be cool, it's gonna be fine. And so I think that my transition and being able to pivot has definitely helped me to respond in 2020. And we've lost some folks. We lost a lot of for me personally, some individuals very, very near and dear, family members and friends. Actually, one JWU alum passed. I won't mention his name, from the Providence campus over the summer, but we've lost some folks, but we just have to be stronger in the process and come out on the better end of things.
Awesome. All right, Elizabeth, round us out on this this conversation on lessons. Any big takeaways, kind of being close to the front lines from 2020?
Absolutely. I think I want to recruit Elana. Everything you said, woman, those are things I talk about every day. I was smiling because you mentioned 3 of the 4 pillars in emergency management. You talked about planning, you talked about response, you talked about mitigation. The only thing you missed was recovery. And who knows, when we're in a new normal, there's no recovering from this, right? But one of the things that I wanted to add is, and I think I'm just going to kind of highlight everything that you mentioned, because you mentioned it so beautifully. And one of the things was being flexible and adaptable. And I think all of our sectors can really gravitate to that, because we're so used to guidance being out in any of our disciplines. Okay, this is what you do. This is how you do it. This is the rule book. Well, it turns out right now, there's no rule book. It's out the window. We stepped on it. We ripped it up. We looked through it, and there was nothing to tell us how to respond to COVID-19. In my specific field, as much as we plan, like Elana mentioned, you know, plan A through Z and then AA to Z, you know, that goes to show you our hurricane preparedness season outlook. Right now, we just had Hurricane Zeta. This was the first time in a long time, in many years, that we tapped into the Greek alphabet. So it just goes to show you, even the hurricane preparedness, the meteorologists, we're planning A through Z, and then we had to tap into the Greek alphabet. So this year, 2020, really is a novel approach to everything that we're doing. And I think it's a very exciting time for alumni, especially the ones that have been furloughed or the ones that are getting back into the industry. You know, right now is your opportunity to write that rule book again. Okay, what works, what didn't work, how can we do it together? So I think it's a very special time for all of us to take advantage of that and write that guidance together, because everything that we're experiencing years to come, people are going to look back and ask us how we dealt with it. So it's a very special time. So I learned to be flexible and accepting of not knowing information, because to me, that's very frustrating. Early on in this pandemic, the CDC, I remember very clearly, because I have to follow that information to a T, they told us not to wear masks. So this is one of my personal after action items that I'm working on, because they were telling us don't wear masks. So I would go home and tell my family, hey guys, this is the guidance, do not wear masks. 2.5 weeks later, okay, wear masks. My family's like, Liz, what the heck? You just told us not to wear it. We were telling patients not to wear it. We were telling guests not to wear it. So it catching up with all of that intelligence, that intel from CDC, the WHO, it was very, it was new, right? No, it was just, we're learning till this day, everything that's going on. To me, it's still frustrating. I'm so used to following guidance, knowing what to do, reading it day and night, and the next day implementing it. So again, it's been, for me, one of my learning curves, or and I would want to advocate it to all of the alumni listening today, and everyone on the panelists, just be open to that. And kind of, again, on what Ted was mentioning, be open-minded, those opportunities, if anything presents itself, whether you majored in something or not, right now is not the time, unfortunately, to be so picky, because now everyone is trying to join the workforce. And I know Natasha is very familiar with that. Another thing I really wanted to mention, the supply chain that we experienced on this public health global pandemic was absolutely nutso, right? We have vendors in place, just like every agency, one, secondaries and tertiaries, but never did we think that even global vendors would be out of touch. So that was what happened when the CDC told the entire world, everyone needs a mask. So guess what? Healthcare workers, people that actually do surgeries, use these masks every single day. So now all of our sudden, our 75-cent mask became $5. So it was crazy, the amount of money that we continue to spend. And that's why the CDC later said, you know what, you can create a mask with cloth. So just to think about, everyone's learning. The CDC didn't really realize or have that forethought. Okay, everyone's now gonna go for that mask that all physicians need, that all nurses need. So it's just very cool to just be open and adaptable. And that's really one of the big things that I learned. And yeah, and connecting with people, sometimes you don't know who your network may be if you tap into a certain discipline. So for example, I never thought that I would need to really, I really don't know how to describe it really, but I just want to say, like, networking is so key, and don't try to network just people that are in your industry specifically, because look, now there's industries that are being laid off. If you could have networked with someone, harness LinkedIn. If and when you do LinkedIn, if any alumni chooses to follow me or connect with me, I will, because JWU has a soft spot in my heart. I really love JWU so much. But specifically,
so on that point, right? I think you said a couple of buzzwords that we want to highlight for this panel. JWU Connects, Emerging Leaders Network, right? And you're talking about making sure that you stay connected, and how we can all, look for making those connections. So on that note, we all just so happen to go to the same great institution, and we're online with a bunch of people that went to that same institution. So can you talk about, a couple of you, starting with you, since we're on you, Liz, talk a little bit about the importance of networking and alumni connections, and looking for that little JWU symbol when you are searching on LinkedIn for different things. So can you talk a little bit about that, since we're on it?
Absolutely. I had a phenomenal experience while I was at JWU. And with that said, since I remain in the South Florida area where the North Miami campus is, I continue to go back and reach out to the criminal justice students just to educate them, kind of like what we were alluding to today. Just because you got your major in CJ doesn't mean you can't do emergency preparedness, doesn't mean you can go outside of that little box that sometimes we're confined to for whatever reason. So I would just, I go specifically to the campus and I make sure that we have someone that's a JWU alumni in the hiring pool, right? Just get them in the door, or put them in the batch of, and then let the, of course, the rest, you got to do it yourself. But, those are small ways that I feel that I can kind of advocate for my network that I really have gotten so much from. When I was a student, I benefited from the JWU fund through several scholarships. So, that's another way that I'm contributing, right? It's not much right now, but one of my internal goals, personal goals, is to give as much as I can when the time is right. just because I want to give back because so much was given to me.
Great. And so on that note, talking about, being involved while on campus, I'll let Natasha and Ben chime in a little bit, just because obviously we were in school around the same time, and I know that you both were engaged on campus. So we'll let, talking about being engaged on campus and graduating with folks, how then do you pivot to staying connected with fellow alumni, either in industry or out of industry, and how can you leverage those for your own development? So Natasha, I'll let you chime in on that first.
So I still live in Providence, and I've tried moving back to New York, but I always felt like there was a piece for me still missing in Providence. So I currently am a permanent resident since I graduated in Rhode Island. So I am always on campus, despite right now I haven't been able to be on campus just specifically because of COVID and things like that. But I'm very involved still with my organization. I still follow a lot of alumni. I'm always connecting, seeing what they're up to, even if it's just a general message like, hey, great job on this, or hey, I know that I noticed you were doing this, just wanted to say I'm really proud of you. Just those little words of encouragement. So I'm always on campus. Anything that is needed, I always make it very clear, let me know if you need anything. I'm 100% here. If there's anything that I can provide, I do tablings. I attend the events that alumni sent out for the lighting and things like that in Gaby Commons. I still try to be very involved with the Greek community, helping if there's anything that we can do in regards to coming together and helping the student body, as well as any advice that I can provide based on what it was like when I was on campus. I have amazing memories, just like Elizabeth, all in all, nothing is ever perfect, but I think that my years at JWU were just hands down the best ones for me, right? So I moved here 3 hours away from family, didn't know a soul at Johnson & Wales, and ended up leaving with a whole different family. I served as an RA, I served on hall council, serve in different leadership boards, things like that. And then I also, again, was able to get scholarships from Johnson & Wales. So I'm always recommending, hey, do an RA, do something involving. If you're an introvert, you'd be so surprised at what the role as an RA or FDM would do for you, because that was me. And then a lot of my mentorship actually started when I became an RA, because a lot of the students, they were transitioning from living at home to then having to be independent, and then self-doubting themselves when it came to hard classes and what it would look like. And then even the major, I graduated international business, but I'm not going anywhere international right now. I just know that at the time, JWU didn't allow my major to be an official major. So I just transferred those classes over, and I don't know, I just love it. That's why I'm always trying to find different ways to give back, different ways to be involved, and networking, social media, Facebook groups, and LinkedIn. I always look, so I'm that person that whenever there's a new class coming in, I try to add myself to that group. So then it can be hey, familiar face, trying to build bridge connections and things like that. And one of the things that JWU actually brought to me is that I was able to meet a cousin I've never met before through that networking in the Facebook group. And then we ended up getting very close when we came to JWU. So it's just the power of networking, and then being open-minded, and then not just looking at somebody you're someone I won't get, or making assumptions of someone. You'll be so surprised once you get to know somebody, how many things you have in common, what you can teach each other. Yeah, if you guys ever have any questions or want to, take a road trip to Johnson & Wales, let me know. I'm always on campus.
So hopefully everybody can kind of feel the love and the passion for the school that everybody has on the panel. So Ben, I'll let you kind of round off this discussion, but let me make sure to take what Natasha said and kind of give a nice little shameless plug for the next Emerging Leaders Graduate platform. So again, hopefully everybody watching this and everybody that'll see this will get a chance to take a look at the JWU Connect's website, to build a profile, to add yourself to the Emerging Leaders Network or one of the other networks that are available. And that's a nice, condensed space that is unique to alumni, and it's just us in our own, kind of JWU community. And I think Ted had put some information in the chat as far as looking for, advice. Some of the best advice and feedback that he got were from folks outside of his industry. So, baking and pastry major may benefit from something that a college of business major might have to say. So we want to encourage those connections and leverage JWU Connects online as much as possible. But Ben, we'll let you speak quickly, and then I think we'll let the alumni relations team open the floor up for some questions from the audience. So go ahead, Ben.
Let me speak quickly. Come on. You know me, I can't do that, but I'll do my best. Yeah, similar to Natasha, absolutely loved my time at JWU. Like, I got to experience so many great things through athletics, as well as then moving in and getting more involved in academic and just kind of other things of that nature with when Marquis kind of pulled me in, and definitely got some good initiatives that we got on campus that I'm pretty proud about to this day. But I think from that, though, I was able to build a network with some of the alumni, both at the time when I was still in school, as well as some of the folks that have graduated that I knew while I was there. And I think for me personally, as I was kind of thinking through making the transition to move away from the last 5.5 years at EY, where I felt almost loyal to a fault at times, I definitely leaned on several of those folks that are in my board of trustees, Marquis being one of them, and a few other the alumni that I could definitely that I can think of right away, where I had several conversations on the phone with them, like, hey, here's what I'm thinking, here's what I want to do eventually, and kind of going through that and having them both knowing kind of where I've come from, but also like having my best interest in mind and like thinking through that process with them. And it kind of helped me make that decision and make that move and to one that I'm super excited about today. But definitely, I can't voice enough how important it is to kind of connect with fellow alum and it kind of roots us all back into what we loved about our time at JWU. And like Natasha said, it was some of the best 4 years of my life, both from what I was able to accomplish, but also just some of the fun I was able to have and some of the stories I can think of with me and Marquis and me and my teammates and other folks. So definitely, and I think, and I've also moved that over, is I moved away from the Providence area, and I live in Chicago now. And I've gone to several of the JWU alumni events in Chicago, and most of those folks are hospitality majors in that area. And I've seen Liza there and things of that nature, where I've connected with a lot of these folks, where then I take my friends to restaurants and I'm like, oh, well, where are my chef friends at? Like, I need to get some good meals in. So definitely, I think to Ted's point, like, doesn't have to be folks in your industry. And even as you could hear with the other panelists here, everybody's from very different industries, but all have very good advice and feedback they could provide that is helpful and transferable to any industry you may be looking at or not looking at, and maybe should be. So definitely feel free to use us, as well as the platform that with the emerging leaders and the alumni network, and use it to the full advantage, because everybody, like I said earlier, everybody is where they are because somebody else helped them, and they're happy to do it forward and pay it forward.
Awesome. So thank you, all of you for that. So now we'll turn it over to our alumni relations team that has been working so diligently in the background. I've seen some questions and discussion come up in the chat, so we'll let Liza from Alumni Relations take it away.
Thanks so much, Marquis. So if anyone has a question for our panelists, please feel free to enter it into the Q&A section and we'll take them from there. We did have one question come in regard to the best ways to go about finding a professional mentor. Is there anyone who wants to take that? Natasha?
The best way to do is LinkedIn, or you can also use like your already established connections. So I do that a lot, where it's like, I'll reach out to someone and say, hey, I know you have a lot of connections. I was wondering if you knew anyone that you can connect me with that is a resource in, this field. And that is actually very helpful, is you, being open, but LinkedIn is also that key for you. So like a lot of what I've done is spend time at least once a week on LinkedIn, updating it, but also looking through my mutual connections or people, but then also searching through like industry if it's something specific that I'm looking for. And then again, adding myself to different groups and doing my own research on that person, and starting off with just like, hey, I found you on LinkedIn, wanted to know if we can connect. And so many people are open to that. And then again, it goes back to not closing any door and not judging. So just being open to having those conversations and learning more. And if that person maybe you thought was a connection that would help you get your foot into something and they weren't, they will be 100% a resource to help connect you to someone else that will be able to.
Yeah, I just want to add a little to that. I think finding mentors is something that's more of an art than a science. I think there's multiple different ways you could do it, and you got to figure out kind of what works best for you. And I think, I forget who said something earlier in this light, is don't be afraid to go out there and just try, like whether it's send somebody a message on LinkedIn. If they don't respond, they don't respond, or talk to somebody in person after like building a relationship from like a personal perspective or just like a natural communication. I think there's no right or wrong way to do it. And I think just being open to kind of putting yourself out there and hoping that somebody will help them reciprocate and help be there for you.
I would like to piggyback off what Natasha and Ben said. Firstly, identifying your need. Because as we discussed in the conversation, you may have different mentors for different things. So identify your need, and then you would seek, persons out based on the need that you have.
Great, thank you all. Our next question is from Jordan. She says, as we're growing our careers, it can be so hard to find a work-life balance because you want to show your leaders that you're dedicated. How do you find this balance? And even more so, how do you find it now in a virtual environment and when we're working from home?
That one I'd love to answer, because the job that I've had for the last 4 years has been it's a small business. So it's me, the owner, and one other person. And so you get very loyal, you get very close, and it's very hard for you to just say no sometimes. And while it's great that they take good care of you, you do have to understand that you deserve a work-life balance. And when I was on furlough, again, I was reflecting a lot on what is important to me. Family is very important to me. Being able to go to church on Sunday, being able to just spend a Friday night cooking a dinner at home and not really worrying about work, not looking at emails, take your email off your phone if you can. But just being able to have that conversation with them, it can be tough. But I think that if you can show your value and show how much work you can get done within that 40 hours or that Monday through Friday, they shouldn't have any problem with you just having to say no to occasionally, whether it's working on the weekends, because, our industry, the hospitality industry, can be weekends, it can be weeknights. And, it's also accepting the fact that if they don't understand that or respect that, then maybe it's not the best fit moving forward. Maybe that's where you kind of realize, well, maybe I need to pivot into something else that will still allow me to be happy, but also have a work-life balance.
If I may also add to that, I have been working nonstop this whole year. I'm blessed that I've been working, but it has gotten to me. I did feel burnt out in the earlier months. So I really had to find a way to do something, and I couldn't go to the gym because the gyms were closed and they're close environments and the droplets and all of that. So of course I wasn't going to work out at home, God forbid, we don't want to do that. But I found mindfulness meditation, and basically that teaches you to meditate, but to be present. And I actually do that 4 times a week. And it really kind of puts me, I feel like a lot of times we may put ourselves in like automatic robot mode. Like sometimes I get home, like, how did I get home? I know the path, I know the way, and I take the same way every day. So that really kind of keeps me present and kind of sets me back and resets me and rejuvenates me. So I would recommend that to everyone to look into it. There's podcasts, there's 20-minute sessions, whatever works for you, but it really has made a difference for me personally.
I would like to add as well, definitely find your outlet. Find what works for you. I remember my first job upon graduating, I loved it. I was able to travel, but I always had to be connected. I had a work phone, a work tablet, a work laptop, and I always had to stay connected. And I was like, this isn't it. Like, no. And I remember upon leaving that job, I got rid of my personal cell phone. Like, I didn't have a personal cell phone for a year. Imagine that, right? And it was relief for me. And I found that I was from New York City, so I could easily hop on the train and go to Manhattan and walk around or go to a park. And then also going to the gym. So I found out what my outlet was and how to get rid of that stressor. And unapologetically, I say now, oh no, I'm busy. Or even to my director, shush, don't say anything, guys. But I'm like, oh yeah, I was on a call with my therapist, or, because since the pandemic, responding to the pandemic, I was like, yeah, I need mental health therapy to help me through this pandemic. So it's always been figure out what your outlet is and be unapologetic about it. Because honestly, if an organization isn't about your mental health, about your wellness, then I don't know if I want to work for them.
Before we get cut off, I want to mention one more thing. Guys, it's up to us to vocalize how we feel, right? Our bosses, our leadership, they may not see us. They may check in and we may just not know at the time how we're experiencing. So we really need to kind of like calibrate ourselves and just know that people can't read our minds, frankly, unfortunately. So really be true to yourselves. And if you need that break, vocalize it, right? Because no one's going to be able to determine that but you. And it took a while for me to determine that. So let's learn from the mistakes that we have come to find out the hard way.
I just want to add one quick thing. It's just about setting boundaries. And aside from setting, separate your workspace. So one of the things that she asked was like working from home. So as Elana mentioned, she set up a different workspace. So once you're done for the day, walk away from that space and separate yourself. It is hard working from home and it's easy to get caught up. But once my workday is done, close out everything that reminds you of work. Close that email. Delete the emails off your phone, because as much as you're working from home and you have a job, being home all day also catches up to you. So you need to be able to have a space in your home that separates you from that. So, I close off everything. I'll put out my out of office and I would just find something else, like, Elyzabeth and Elana have said, to take your mind off of it. Maybe it's a walk, maybe it's a 30-minute workout, maybe it's blasting music afterwards, and you have to create that boundary with your supervisors as well and let them know, hey, this is what's happening and this is what's going on. And then go for walks if you want to during the day. Like, that is a-okay. You can do like a 5-10 minute walk around the block and say, hey, I just need a breather, and do that. But just do whatever's going to be helpful for you, although you're home, and don't let the comfort of your four walls basically also hinder you from feeling like you don't have a balance.
Great, thank you for those answers. We have time for one more question very quickly. So this one is from Eric. He says that every time he mentions JWU at networking events, he gets responses like, isn't that a culinary school? He said he finds it a great icebreaker to talk about the various opportunities JWU offers, and we can see all of that because of you. He would like to know, what do you do when you get similar comments? And how do we get away from JWU being known as just a culinary school?
I can answer that. I would say I would get that a lot. I wasn't the networking event type person, but in just conversations that I would have with people beyond networking events, it was that same response. And it was, oh, I feel like I was actually a walking billboard, and I had like this spiel that I was spit out. Johnson & Wales University is like beyond a culinary school. And I think at the time, that was one of the newest programs for me. I mean, JWU has since evolved, but at that time, culinary was the newest programs, and I begin to share with them the other programs that are available, and I go into details about the program that I was into, and I even talk about, my professors that I have and how some of them still, I'm still in touch with some of them, and they follow me on social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and the different ways that Johnson & Wales is a family, no matter what major that you had.
I'd like to chime in on that. I know I'm not an official panelist, but I love this.
Still an alumni.
Yes, I love when this question comes up. I'm a College of Business major, but I love when this comes up because I've actually started to kind of lean into the culinary discussion. Emerald Lagasse is one of our Board of Trustee members. the guy, what's his name? Chris Santos from Chopped is one of our alumni. He received a Distinguished Alumni Award a few years ago. Even as of recently, Ashton Garrett, one of our alumni that's done an Emerging Leaders interview, he was featured on Guys Grocery Games for the Food Network. He's being honored by, I think it's the Washington DC, Black Chefs, Association, something along those lines. So I find it also kind of fun to lean into the culinary background, even though it's not the only program at JWU. It's also, a great talking point, and then take that opportunity to educate whoever you're talking to about some of the other programs and where you come from. But no harm in leaning into some of our best known stuff too. So just food for thought when you
So
get.
Very similar to Elana, I have an elevator pitch ready, and I actually start off on the contrary. Johnson & Wales started as a business school by Mrs. Johnson and Mrs. Wales, and I worked my way right into that. And I was like, we have several majors, and I was like, I study criminal justice, and I kind of start talking about that, but I will start every single response to that question exactly like that. And they're like, oh, really? You don't say. And of course, then I say, we became, a premier institution. We became recognized, internationally by our culinary arts program because our alumni became so prestigious, but we actually didn't start that way. And, I still say, I like to think that I'm going to be a really awesome alumni, and then we're going to be known because of my major, right? So I think that kind of hold them accountable and say, well, what are you doing to kind of change that or add to that? Because I'm very proud of all of the chefs and the culinary arts and the baking and pastry programs as well. So I don't want to take from that either. Great question, because we all experience that in some sort of way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Ted. Go
No,
ahead.
no. I was just going to say, kind of piggybacking off of that comment before, we have to hold each other accountable. And I think that showing up and being on campus, I think being a part of organizations that are not specifically related to culinary arts, like I said, I'm in NACE and I helped start a student chapter at the Charlotte campus. And because of that, before doing that, that was what I always heard as well in NACE. People were like, oh, Johnson & Wales, or, unfortunately, in some cases, there was even, when we got rid of our dress code, there were some trickle effects of people thinking we weren't as professional anymore. And so we have to hold each other accountable. We have to hold the current students accountable, even the campuses accountable, to push them and advocate for these organizations that will then lift the students up. It's kind of a trickle effect. If those students become passionate about it and those careers and those majors, when they graduate and become alumni just like us, they will then also be more proud and share more about it, be more passionate, be more involved, and show people that, hey, it's not just a culinary school. We have everything. I mean, we really have a lot of amazing majors. And so I think accountability, pushing for those organizations, and pushing your local, if you're near your campus, to do that, just pushing them to be more involved and just get that domino effect started.
Yeah, and then I think just to add to that, I handle it a little bit like Marquis. I kind of lean into it because I think it's a way where you could add humor in early on and also be a point that catches somebody's attention and kind of makes them remember you, because it's something different than what they'll hear from most folks, right? But then at that point, I think to what all the other panelists have been saying, I think it's a matter of doing things like this, like with this panel, and being able to support fellow alumni in different industries to kind of help continue to build us all up. Because the more they see folks like us kind of move our way up in our industries, the more it's not going to just be a culinary school. It's going to be like Johnson & Wales, just a great institution that has a wide range of options and opportunities that these folks come out and are just crushing it in all realms of industry, right? So I think I kind of use it more as a humor point and kind of something that I could catch somebody's attention with. But I think to everybody's point, it's a matter of supporting fellow alumni and making sure we're continuing to grow and build off each other and our experiences.
Great. Those were some great answers. So thank you so much, Marquis, panelists, and all of our emerging leaders that are on the call today. As your careers progress, always remember that you have access to a unique and powerful resource, the JWU alumni community. Your fellow alums have a wealth of knowledge, experience, and advice that they're willing to share. Another way alumni like you are serving as leaders in our community is by giving back to support our current students. Sharing your time, talent, and expertise enhances the JWU experience, but financial donations at any level are equally important. The simple act of giving in any amount actually contributes to the growth of JWU's reputation, our rankings, and our ratings. Alumni giving is a measurement in the US News and World Report rankings, and we need your help to increase the university's ranking by giving annually to the university. This, in turn, increases the value of a JWU degree for all current and future alumni. So if fellow alumni ask why you give to the university, please share with them that their gift will help elevate the reputation of our national rankings. But most importantly, gifts of all sizes from all alumni combine to make a difference for the students following in your footsteps. So many Wildcats and their families are still facing challenges related to our public health and economic crises, and you can have a direct and immediate impact by giving to the JWU Emergency Fund today. We've included a link in the chat window for your convenience. We sincerely hope that you enjoyed today's session, part of the JWU Connects family of programming. Through JWU Connects, you can engage in informative and interesting discussions related to professional development topics, as well as opportunities for networking and connection with fellow classmates and faculty. For the full listing of upcoming events, please visit our events calendar at alumni.jwu.edu. On behalf of the university community, I would like to thank Marquis and all of our panelists. Thank you to all of our participants for joining us today and for the opportunity to strengthen our JWU alumni community. Have a wonderful day.